So I think we've got, I think we're on, they're both showing, yeah. Right.
Please. Yes.
You will.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and then you can log in and I can then share mine. Yeah, it will come now. I'm not always saying.
Wow.
I think it's start to be able to let's get started.
We've got suitcases, we've got two different teams. Mars.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to meeting of the Farm Board here at the Town Council on the 18th of October 2024. As always, there's a fairly full agenda. We'll run through where we're at against our plan. So, can I start there by welcoming first of all Greg Stafford, your newly elected member of Parliament. Very welcome. Can I just also mention the passing of Wyatt Ramsdale? Wyatt was sorry, south and this board indeed. That's I think probably that is issue or private person. Right, we will go straight into the agenda. So first of all, any apologies for absence. Follows. Okay, Ian, I can't see who's online with us.
So we've got David, Hannah, Churchill, and Neil McClure.
They're all officers. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Ian will help me in terms of if your hand goes up. I'll come towards it. So, item 2, the actions and minutes from the last meeting. So, most of that I think we're going to pick up as we go through. There were a list of decisions which we county council members were put forward. Those decisions, such they were made, I understand. Signs for the Riverside car park. And yeah, the meeting has been set up. I think whether that's happened yet or will be happening with Northern Council. Back to the front of the purpose. The high level programs reviewed, and that's covered in the slides. And then ironstone paving. That's now again, it has been signed off by both Wayne Council and obviously by the council. So that's
just on that last point, there was a commitment to share those drawings with Parliament and Council and Council just as a vote point of clarification, and Surrey County councillors did have meetings last week and were requested to hold as part of item 1, but the proposals that we made are not necessarily those that are being carried forward because they're subject to officer review.
With regards to the ironstone, it's not normal business for us to obviously share all our detailed plans. We've gone out to the experts, the officers at Surrey and Waverley. They've done a full site walkover.
Can you just turn the microphone around because we've got it. You can turn it sideways.
Just a bit.
But the base. That's it. It will pick up on the phone. That's it. You switch it back on. It's gone off.
Ask the question, I was going to say it just in my mouth. So it's not normal business for us to share these technical drawings. We've gone through all the experts at Waverley and Surrey in our heritage and conservation teams. The aspiration, as you all wanted, was to retain as much ironstone as possible. We had a walkover with the heritage teams. We reviewed all the crossovers and private entrances, and the plans have subsequently been signed off by everybody. So we've done due diligence of Surrey officers.
okay, but presumably we can share those agreed plans now. But I think the point you make is they're not up for discussion further, but there's no reason why we can share the plan.
I think we have got a bit of a mismatch now, and this is not the only incident where there's been discussion on an item that's then being implemented in between meetings. So the top of, which we'll come on to, I'm sure, top of downstream Westgate is another example where we were given it at one meeting. By the time we get to the next meeting, it's already been agreed, and there's been no subsequent sharing of documents or proper discussion at town council level. Ironstones has been a fundamental point from the very beginning, and was genuinely involved on the walk round. The actual drawings of what has come through later have not yet been shared with us. And I think that is a pity because it's obviously it's going to be a very important element of the heritage and the history going forward. And what we're now being given is, with professionals, we decide it's being done. And I think there's an element of sort of more collaboration still required. I'm sorry to say that at the start of the meeting, but that's how it feels at the town council.
As you can imagine, detailed design isn't just on that element, it has to cover drainage and other elements. You know, we've got a lot of other interested policies to design by committees, really difficult, you know, and I have to use legal and technical experts to make sure we've got it appropriate. So we will share them. I'm quite happy to share them. Thank you.
Okay, well, I mean, I think we are now starting to move into the delivery phase of these projects. So, to that extent, I mean, we need to keep momentum behind it. So, if there aren't, or if decisions, if there isn't agreement on a decision, then we kind of need to get that flagged up. And my kind of understanding was that pretty much everything that had been discussed with the three councils. But well, then as we go through the agenda, perhaps if you can kind of just pick out anything where where that doesn't happen. It's always been the case that this is a sort of a tripartite approach, and it's really important that all three councils, with our different responsibilities, are comfortable with the way forward. So we'll bear that in mind as we move through the agenda. So shall we move on to item 3 then, which is an update on progress?
So we've done a lot of activities since we last met. There's been a great deal of work, and we've delivered a lot of things. You know, let's kind of be positive, coming from the negatives. The report on progress is actually on the model, and welcome to look at it in more detail. So what is happening next? So on to the next slide. So, Wading Lane and the town centre have already been completed. A 40 vehicle activated sign on Crondale Lane has also been replaced. As you can see, construction works for the tables, crossings and signs in the Upper Hale Road has started. So this started on the 7th of October, it's night works. Here's some photos of the works this week. This programme is for 5 weeks. A TRO, traffic regulation order, will be in place at the end of November, mid-November, once the signs. So as the signs are up, then it's completed. On to the next slide.
Sorry, hang on.
Sorry.
So I'm very grateful and very relieved to see the turn on our can't go to as we've discussed, there have been some things that haven't really gone according to plan. Comms that went out wasn't quite what we would have liked in terms of the fact it announced a 5-week closure, and it was actually 9 closures, and there have been various other things, including in some ways the way the contractors behaving on site hasn't been particularly wonderful, with loud music playing and various other complaints being made. And also we've had issues with the bus routes because of the way the signage went up, and then because of the late notification of changes in the bus routes. I would really welcome the opportunity for us to sit down and do a bit of lessons learned exercise as a team. You know, what's the feedback from residents, what went well, what didn't go well, because I think there are things that we can learn as part of what we're doing in the town centre. Obviously the water lane works that we did weren't in a residential area. This is the first set of real physical interventions we've done in a residential area, so I think it's a really good opportunity to do that, and I'm very much welcome the opportunity.
On to the next one. So medium-term interventions. This is the Borelli Riverside Cycle Improvement Scheme. This has had some significant work since we last met, and I'm going to hand over to Hannah Simpson, who's the project manager on this, to provide some detail.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, so the Borelli Riverside Walk Cycle Improvement Scheme is aiming to create a shared use footpath for cyclists and pedestrians, which extends from South Street to the Riverside car parks. This is a priority east-west link that, as part of the LC work that we're delivering early. So the red route shown on the plan on the screen is the section that Surrey County Council will be delivering. We're currently finalising the design for this section, which will include a widened and resurfaced path, new lighting and landscaping works. We've been liaising with the countryside access team to get the temporary diversion route approved, which has now been done, and notices for that will be put up on site next week. Though we're still working with the contractor to set the programme for this section, the current plan is to do this ahead of the town centre works and get the construction started for a 4-week programme this year. We've also been in discussion with Crest Nicholson for them to deliver the blue section, as they're already mobilised in this area for the bridge construction and for some reinstatement works on the entrance to South Street. We're waiting for a confirmed programme from them for this works, but our understanding at the moment is that it will be done in February next year. Thank you.
Could you just share with us what the kind of understanding is of the removal of the bridge?
The latest understanding is that the bridge will be removed at the end of November, and then there'll be some preparation works going on until February, and the new bridge will go in February.
So there'll be a gap with 2 or 3 months without a bridge, and there'll be no temporary bridge.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Just regarding the installation of the new bridge, is that going to require the closures of the A31, or can that be done from within site?
So the understanding I have from the Crest is that it would require lane closures of the A31 to take that out. We'll be working with them and Streetworks to make sure we're not having any clash with any of the works going in town.
The existing with that is not just a lift boom, so
Yes,
the closure will be
Sure.
when the train this period of time. Yeah.
We received, thank you, Hannah, yesterday, the details, drawings and the lighting columns suggested. We haven't yet had a chance to talk about that, but we hadn't expected this on our land, that they would be 5 metre high, typical urban design, because all the conversations previously in the scheme have been about the lights not being on permanently, that they would be sensor related and not of that height. So I think we still need to have a conversation around the actual lighting columns, but not necessarily where they're going to be placed. I mean, so my colleague Ian is looking at this today, and then hopefully we'll catch it at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, that's good. We've just got that.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Going back to the bridge, how long will an enclosure be there? Because it's the run up to Christmas, and I can hear the retailers saying, "Oh no, A31 lane closure." Again, day. Is it going to be a day? Is it no?
No,
Is it no?
very quick to just lift the whole thing up and
Brilliant. Thank you.
Sorry, then
Thanks. Just a point I wanted to make, the whole purpose of the existing bridge, it's called the Temporary Construction Action Bridge, this is for the major construction. That has now been completed really, but there'll still be work going on the site, particularly new retailers fitting out the shops, etc. We just need to be aware of that. That will create some extra traffic through the town, etc. And so I just wanted to make that point, that will be an issue we need to be aware of. But it will be a gradual process over quite a number of months.
yeah, no, yes. Exactly. I think that the key thing is to be clear, to be certain that the new bridge will be installed in February, and that there's no delay to whatever the date is. Too many months without that access is really good. Okay,
The next is an update from Neil McClure, just on the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. I think Neil's online.
Thank you, Elaine. Yes, I'm here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just a summary update position and recent progress made on the LSWIP. So I think the big ticket item, and this is detailed on the progress report as well. The big ticket item is that the meeting is held between the Surrey County, Waverley Borough and Farnham Town Councillors last month. This was the delegated authority item that came from Waverley Borough Executive for discussion an agreement of how to proceed with the LSWIP priority routes and other bits that are looking to be included within the Farnham LSWIP report addendum. So yeah, the key item, the agreement of priority routes to take forward, which is now within scope and budget for the LSWIP stage 2, which is the feasibility design development stage. So agreement of the top 4 priority route schemes that were agreed during the Surrey councillor-led sessions, stakeholder sessions held last year. So we're now gearing up with the project teams to commence this stage of the work. The other key items that have been agreed, firstly, the Waverley Borough additions, updates to the published LSWIP report, including additional cool walking zones, have been agreed. And separate to this, the Surrey County Councillor additions, updates to the LSWIP report agreed, which includes provision for improved north-south connectivity through the town centre, linked to the development sites in the area. So in terms of the agreed priority routes and the additions updates that we've now agreed, they're all now being captured within the Farnham LSWIP report addendum. And together with the original full LSWIP report for Farnham, the published report, this provides the agreed strategic plan for developing the improved cycle walking routes and connections in the local area. And as everyone knows, in terms of the LSWIP programme, county-wide, which is all aligned for the districts and boroughs, by developing these schemes, we're working towards securing the necessary funding to deliver the routes on the ground, the construction phase, which is expected to follow after feasibility and subject to funding. So I think that captures the summary of where we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil, just as you know, we've discussed the fact that we have a couple of developments going on in Farnham that would benefit from the addendum having been issued. You know, one is obviously the central development, which is the route that you referred to. The other is the Hawthorns development, where there's an access application and a reserved access application currently with Waverley Borough Council. And the third one is the cemetery application, which has gone to appeal, probably the most urgent and most important. The appeal submissions need to be into the planning inspector by the 24th of October. I'm just wondering whether or not your team are able to provide input into both the Hawthorns and the cemetery appeal, just to state that these are priority routes. I mean, obviously I can do that in the documents that I'm supplying, but I'm a county councillor, I'm not speaking on behalf of the full council. I'm just wondering whether you can help us with that.
Yes, we can, and so we already have. So in terms of the response to the planning piece comes from the Transport Development Planning colleagues at Surrey, and we met with them after the September meeting we had, which effectively has agreed all the pieces that are now part of the Farnham LSWIP report. So in terms of TDP, you know, they have a full understanding of what's the agreed strategic plan here for the LSWIP, and therefore that's been fully taken into account in terms of their response to the planning pieces and future development sites, etc., going forwards. So yeah, I'm comfortable that's in place. Thank you.
Not directly related to the LSWIP, but do anyone have any updates on all these and what is, you know, urgent now? But is there any revised planning application or I don't know, that's all I'm afraid. Well, Lewis said they're doing something on the site, but
I believe that was possibly, sorry, point back. I believe that is to perhaps make way for a car park for some of this work.
Everybody seems to know about that, but us.
Rumours, all the things.
okay. Anything else on the site?
Just on the Warmby, we understand that Homes England are talking with potential developers in terms of what can be achieved on site in terms of the government's objectives, which may or may not include collaboration with other partners such as UCN, etc. So all of that is still at the early stage from what they told us, but they hope to complete that by the end of this year. So we may hear something early in the new year.
Okay. Good. Right, okay, in that case, Elaine, I think we're back to you on item 3.4 Water Lane.
So, as you probably all are aware, construction is complete for the Water Lane roundabout Tootham Crossing. A post-construction road safety audit has been undertaken and we are now monitoring post-construction. So, town centre improvements, the team's been working really hard to finalise the sign. There's been a lot of activities which have been carried out. The team have been working really hard to finalise the design, and a lot of activities have been carried out since the last Farnham board in June. I'm going to pass over now to the project manager, Aurelie Poe, who will be providing you with more detail of the activities. Thank you.
So on the design, there's been further discussions on utility, CCTV and bus shelters. As I'm sure you're all aware, the traffic commission orders, the digital scheme have now been switched on. We've received actually very few comments, so we're just drafting some responses for local members for. We currently make sure that all work packages are aligned and coordinated. So for example, civils who are going to be delivered by our contractor, lighting by milestone, traffic signal, as well as engaging with key utility companies such as BT, who we need to come and do some work as well now. So in terms of preparation for construction, since last year, we've also been developing the construction phasing plan with the contractor on our straight work scheme, so that the order the scheme will be built, and the plan includes planning traffic management in the direction works on. It's been now reviewed with emergency services, members and businesses, and we've taken a lot of comments, for example, including some relief routes and avoiding car park closures for Christmas. We've also done a detailed review now with Stagecoach of the phasing plan, looking at both impacts on mitigation, but there's still another layer of refining to do. So looking at impacts on parking, refuse collection, delivery, and so on. So still working on developing this further. And we see very much working towards January 2025 start date. And then we start with conference setup and ETP's works to start initially. And then we now hand over to Ben Fanning, our acquisition manager. We've been working on the proposed comments for before, during, and after delivery of the transfer schemes and with this rates.
You tell your microphone.
Could we ask questions first before?
Yeah.
There's still, we had I attended the recent Business Improvement District meeting, and there seems to be a lot of disquiet with the businesses about lack of understanding or sharing of information about the phasing programme. So we know it's starting in January, and there's an indicative list of zones which are going to be started, but we were still told this is still in draft. We still have not seen a phasing programme as a town council, and given that we're now very close to January, one would expect that that would now be shared with us in terms of, we know it's going to be changing. We know that contractors are going to come back with detailed implications, but there are 9 different zones for the phasing, and it would be helpful to get some sort of indicative timing of when those are now taking place and whether there's any adjustments following discussion with the contractors. And so it'd be helpful to know when that might be shared with us.
I'll ask again, so as I suspect should be reinforcing that one.
Yes. Very much. I'm still astonished at how many retailers and employees are still unaware of the FIP. It's not a fault of the project board or your communications at Surrey. It's human nature. Until the digging starts outside their premises, it's someone else's problem. The 3 Surrey County councils have talked about this, and we're really willing to have a meeting and see if we get as many businesses in there to heighten the awareness of the FIP going forward. We realise the design of the project is final, cannot be changed or altered. However, as councillors, we need to lay the fears of our businesses in this town. Farnham wants the delivery of this project to be successful because it's the future of this town. But I would like to have us have it.
So it's a supplement. Yes, so I completely agree with everything that's been said about businesses, but it's not just the businesses, it's about residents as well. My inbox is full of people who are concerned about where they're going to be able to park, how they're going to be able to get in, etc., etc. And that's both people who are resident within the centre of the town, but also those who use the centre of the town for shopping, for business, or schools, etc. So I think having the phasing very, very open and clear, and as much as possible, and even more public information, whether that be online, whether that be flyers that businesses can put in their own businesses, etc. So I don't think we can have too much communication on this issue.
Just coming back to buses, I think a lot of the residents in Upper Hill were quite shocked by how the buses were communicating, well, the changes to the bus routes were communicated from 20 mile an hour Obviously, because we are going to be closing roads in the town centre, that will affect every bus that comes in and out of this town. And, you know, as part of the works on the Uphill Road, we stopped running buses between Farnham Hospital and the most deprived area in Farnham at night. And that has meant that those that work at the hospital have been unable to get home, which is very far from being ideal, and they only found out 3 days before the work started. I remain extremely concerned. I know you've had discussions with Stagecoach, but if we leave the routes as they are today and we allow them to apply the standard diversion routes they apply, we will leave large parts of this town without bus routes for months. And I really, really would encourage you to please engage with at least the 3 Surrey County councillors regarding what the plans are for buses, so that we can communicate it early, because the people who rely on buses don't have alternatives. And we're already getting into a situation where, because the students are back, we've got buses that are full. My husband couldn't get on the bus to get home the other night. I've encouraged him to use the bus, and then he couldn't get on the bus. But you know, I really do want us to not just think about we're closing roads, but also that we are impacting on the buses, because we do need people to use buses more rather than less.
I mean, just on the buses point, as I accept the point. I mean, I did meet with the management of Stagecoach, and we have agreed, County Council has agreed to fund an additional bus for up to 2 years, which will hopefully address the timing issues that Stagecoach were raising. And part of that conversation was about obviously understanding and communicating. So there is an active conversation, but with further meeting with the Stagecoach just to now we're at this stage to make sure that that's on board. So I think that what we need to talk about now is the phasing and the communication of that phasing, because everything else hangs on that. So first.
This stage works. Yes, on the phasing plan, we've shared a high level draft one. I understand we'd want more sooner. It's very much because it's an iterative process. So as you know, we had a long conversation with Stagecoach exactly to do that, because we know that the impact, we're really working through each phase and try to mitigate each phase. So it's as little impact as possible. And we'll be having the same conversation when it comes to parking, to delivery, so engaging further with businesses to address all these issues. And as we iterate the plan, then we'll share the next iteration. And so yeah, through the delivery, communication will be really, really important to manage the impact. And so hopefully the next few slides that Ben can go through, we'll also have alleviate some of the concerns.
Thank you. So just to give a bit of a flavour of so just to give a bit of a flavour of what we're working on and what we're preparing at the moment. And I just wanted to just look through the main audiences we're looking at. Of course, it covers people right across the town, different ways, not it. So it's the residents, both within, there's a lot of people living within the town centre, so they'll need some very specific communications, but also thinking about what we're doing to the wider town. Retailers and businesses, business students, obviously use the local councillors and your colleagues in the town and the borough, and the local media as well. And it's going to, obviously there's different sets of messaging we'll be doing throughout the works. We want to be focusing on the long-term messaging, kind of the eyes on the prize. This is what we're trying to deliver. This is the town centre that we want you to have. Those shorter-term updates. What are we doing now? What are we doing next? Where are we going to be? Making sure that the letter drops are going in, so people know exactly what's going on. The piece around the alternative modes of travel, so that's promotion of walking and cycling. We've been in touch with the cycle campaign about what we can do to promote cycling and put some behaviour change methodology around that one. Bus changes as touched upon, so use of Surrey Connect and information about car parks as well. Wider changes to services that may come as a result of this, as well as that piece I mentioned before about promotion of Farnham to maintain footfall throughout the works and keep people coming into town. So just moving on to a bit more on the tactics. So we're kind of dividing things up into what we can start doing before the work. So we're looking at kind of some long-term signage on the outskirts of town. kind of want to make sure that we're in the loop on some things like the car parks mentioned earlier, and also that's a good place that we can be putting messages for people who do travel into Farnham about what's coming up. So that's something I'm keen to sort of pursue with Waverley as well. We are looking at organising some face-to-face events, potentially for 10-1 for just for businesses alone. We need to get those in the diary. Christmas is quite awkwardly timed. We either go much early or a bit late. I think probably it's better to go a bit late, so I don't think anyone would be really wanting to come and talk to us in the middle of December. So we're trying to get something of those in around about mid-January time. And then my ongoing commitment that we'll always have the website that's up to date. I want to make sure we've got stuff in using the local media, BBC, Surrey, the Farnham Herald, and as well as social media. And also we are interested in terms of what we're sort of saying about to make sure everybody knows we are looking at online things, we're looking at offline as well. So can we do, we are looking at what we can deliver to households. I want to make sure I'm thinking in with the town council, maybe the library, about where we can have information available for people as well if they're not online. And then just looking at during the works, there's that localised messaging about what's happening in different places at that one time. So that's sort of temporary signage to go alongside the long-term signage. What can we have around the work sites itself to give information what's going on, making sure there's information around the town about the changes to bus services, the impact of that, and the very sort of those localised letter drops to people on those routes where they have the latest information and know what's going on. But suppose, doing that alongside face-to-face contacts, making sure there's people available in the town, people can see if we can get people to drop into businesses and traders just to check in and be a public face, as well as do we need to have sort of periodic meetings where people can come in and talk in a more formal environment. And then there's just the e-commerce bit that will carry throughout. And we are still working with BID quite closely, and I know that Farnham and Waverley are involved in these conversations about what we can be doing to promote farming throughout the works, keep that footfall up. I think it's good that the BID is working quite closely with us, and they're happy for us to be involved. So I think that's a positive thing. But we're trying to be led by the business with our support. So I think that's a really useful thing. But happy to answer any questions.
Somebody said we know that understandably a lot of residents don't really take much notice of what is happening until the sign goes up saying we are closing this road for 9 months to put in a cycle lane. This is that's a standard contract, it's absolutely fine. But the test for this is first of all, it's be good quality communication. It needs to be timely, it needs to be accurate. You need to be able to. A resident needs to go to speak to Ryan in Cafe Nero when they're ordering their large black Americano, which is fine. And Ryan needs to understand what is happening in Castle Street, West Street, in that locality. Every single retailer in this town needs to have that plan. So the residents in and out, that quite apart from the wider communication, we cannot over communicate this. We know that it takes 7 times before people really get a message. So we need to go early and we need to go late. So we really need to start this communication now.
Yeah.
So that when hopefully we've got significant footfall for the Christmas period, everybody will know that January, whatever, the work's going to start down the street and so on. So I think it's really got to be targeted, good quality, accurate information. And personally,
thank you, Tim. You've covered some of the things I would like to say, but one of the really interesting points that came out of our discussion yesterday was the point that Michaela made, is that even if you walked into a retailer in the borough and West Street and you found a local shop manager, you'd still be talking to the wrong person actually, and that they regard this as a problem for the regional manager who sits somewhere else, etc. And that this must be a common problem actually elsewhere. Then I don't know how to deal with this. And that if there's a problem when all this happens, and the people at Boots write to you and say, "Oh, when we told about this," and they wouldn't have been told about it locally, they wouldn't have got back to the regional management. How do we get to these people that aren't actually local, but the actual key people, the key decision makers? And the other ones we should be passing information to the town's talking about, make sure their staff all understand that it won't work if we just deal with the local shop managers and so on and so forth.
Just to be fair, there are other good coffee shops in Bath. David.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, we must provide opportunities to treat as many people as possible, yes. But I do think we have to be really honest with people in communication. Particularly like, you know, let's face it, there's going to be significant disruption in town centre. And in fact, you know, this will be to, I'm going to be honest and say to people, it might take you longer to make your journeys to do these trips. And I do think we have to be totally honest in that. Otherwise, you know, otherwise we can be hiding you behind a pole shadow. The other thing I would say also is that, yeah, it's very good news that, you know, we're going to fund an extra bus, but it might not help people of West Street, for example. If we close of Downing Street, which ought to know service on West Street for 6 months or 9 months or whatever, then just the extra bus in itself, which is welcome, you know, in the time it will not help those people. So I mean, I'm just saying that we have to be quite open and honest in any communication we have.
Anybody else want to add comments?
So I guess what worried me was when you said face-to-face meeting in January. I mean, the reality is we have to get in there before Christmas. We have to, you know, as Tim said, if just the people in this room communicate what's going on, it's never going to work. It's got to be sports clubs, it's got to be the doctor's surgeries, it's got to be everyone is communicating. This work is starting in January and this is what we're going to do. And I would really plead that we do some comms in November, probably too late to do it in October. We were originally talking about doing it in October. We have to do it in November. You know, to me, we have to have a stall in, you know, Farnham Town turn its lights on. You know, there has to be a stall there saying this is the FIP, this is what's coming. I mean, it could well be that everyone ignores us, but at least we've tried. You know, and I think, as Tim said, I'm a great believer in you can't over communicate. And I communicated an awful lot about the works on the Upper Hale Road, and I am still shocked by the number of people that are in the same group that I communicated with on social media who have still said, I did not know that was happening. And, you know, so I've tried really hard and still failed. So, but please, let's not leave it to January, pretty please.
Ian, and then we'll come back.
I just want to endorse what Ben has said about the collaboration, which is very positive. All the tiers working together, and I think the police involvement's been very good because they're doing some branding for Farnham, and I think it's been agreed that that branding about selling Farnham as being a good destination place to go, you know, ties in well with that segment of the work, which is about saying Farnham's open, etc. So we've also agreed a single point of truth, which is going to be directing our comms to the website. So there's no chance of us miscommunicating the information that's coming out. So I think that's all very positive. I endorse what Patty's just said as well about Christmas light switch on, Christmas market. We can make space available for the team to have prominent stands, 10,000 people at the Christmas market. So, you know, good opportunity of getting the message across. We can also consider whether or not we can give you a 4-page pull-out in the residence guide that gets delivered in January to every household. And so that would be something that we can have the phase and plan and other information about the messaging that people can pull out and keep if they don't keep the whole thing. So I think there is you know, some good start. The concern that people have expressed is there's a difference between us promoting farmers out to business and then the detail which Catherine's alluded to about the individual phases of the work. And we need to be absolutely sure that the two things are in sync, so that the same farmers out to business, but we've said the right bit of the road that's closed or the right bit of the road that's accessible. So I think that's been dealt with in two different bits in the county. Perhaps you can just explain how that works.
Just to run through some of those, absolutely we need to get the right information out to the right people. I think that point around things like deliveries, I think that's where some face-to-face contact and having people who can come and talk to traders and it's build up those relationships, because often I think if you liaise properly with the contractor and everybody sort of working together, then often those issues can be dealt with and as they go along. Yes, Andy, that is a difficult one to get through to those right people. I think it's just trying to build up the personal relationships. Yes, it might be the people in the shop, but eventually we'll probably get through to the right people. But it comes where that ongoing dialogue is important, and there's certainly somebody we've talked to when someone came to Kent who's keen to come and sort of be that face for us and come and do those visits. But that is tricky. In terms of being honest about disruption, I think this feeds into what Ian was saying. Yes, we do need to be honest that there will be disruption, but also what we don't want to do is, on the other hand, is put people off from coming into town. So there's a definite balance to be struck there about being honest that there will be disruption, but not putting people off coming here altogether, because we don't want that either. To what Catherine was saying about before Christmas, it's not to say I'm not going to do anything before Christmas. It was just when we time some of that face-to-face engagement. I'm happy to liaise with Ian as his offer around the light switch, the Christmas light switch on, things like that. But there's certainly things we can certainly be doing this side of Christmas. It's just working out what we do at the right time for maximum impact, that we just need to just work out and be able to say the right things at the right people at the right times.
Well, no, we did it twice. I mean, you don't try and do it now, do it at Christmas, we do it in January.
Okay.
But have you finished that?
Yeah, that's right.
I think to kind of allay everyone's sort of worries, I know Ben has sent that to most of the officers and members of the activity tracker. If we can kind of build on that and maybe commit to sort of early countdown to construction, really good. And then we can pull in our contractor as well at that point. And I think that's when if you're going to get the detail and a bit more sort of granularity, the impact deliveries, how people will help and work together. So absolutely we'll do that, Captain.
Sorry, to prolong this comms a bit, but the two things. One, I remain concerned that we don't have given that we're probably 10 weeks away from start date, maybe 11 weeks from start date, we don't have the phasing plan. So when a finalised phasing plan, when can we have that? And because there's no point communicating something that's going to change, and that leads on to, obviously we hope that nothing changes during the construction work, but we're realistic, so it is. And the only thing worse than no communication is the wrong communication. What plans are there for when we put out a phasing plan? We told them we have an inevitably something slips or something changes. How are we going to communicate those changes during the project?
I think there's a couple of things we can be doing there. As I've mentioned, that we're looking at doing an e-newsletter. If we need to do, my plan was kind of to do a broader one around about once a month, saying this is what we've done, this is what we're going to do. We can do more and urgent ones if we need to. I think it's just an ongoing, it's just using those channels, it's getting things delivered out to residents if we need to. I mean, a lot of the time, from what I understand from the draft phasing plan, we're going to be on some of these roads for a long time, a good couple of weeks or months. So I think we will have time within that to identify if things are changing, if there are slips. My feeling is that it's never going to be an urgent update, but it's just using those channels as we go and being open and honest with people as we need to. Elaine, what's coming?
Yeah, it's just reassurance. We've done some early contractual engagement, which is the draft plan that everyone shared and we talked about. We've had to go through our own channels. You can imagine we've gone through our street works team, our emergency services, plus it's quite a lot before we press the button on this is actually, contractor, we're ready to go, this is purchase order, and crack on and do a full programme. But that countdown will get there between the store and we'll pick up everything as we go through. So I think we're comfortable that we've done this really robust early contractual engagement. It's kind of a draft, but it's as good as the moment.
But we know the minute somebody starts digging up a bit of road or a bit of pavement, they'll find a utility that they haven't expected, and then they'll find a gas leak which they can't work out where it's coming from, and so on. So inevitably, the works programme will get delayed. It's just the very nature of this thing. So I think, the key message for me, it's that you know, you had Ben on the previous slide, the sort of the long term sort of ambition. We don't need to be communicating that. Everybody knows what that is. This is about the short term impact. It is about, you know, Farnham is open for business. There is works going on, and that will mean perhaps some sort of change of behaviour or routes. But at the end of the day, Farnham is open for business. So it's I don't. We're all, and that is your job, but I cannot overemphasise the fact that the need to communicate with this is absolutely essential. That Ian and the town council have, you know, up-to-date information on anything on the plan, you know, on any changes to that, because we will be dependent, partly dependent upon you through the town council to get those messages out in a timely way. So you know, I think we're all saying the same thing, which is start the communication now, and just keep pumping out accurate comments.
Going to do a positive spin. We are going in, we are resurfacing, we're going to do drainage, we're going to do some repairs while we're there, so hopefully we don't come back. I think it's quite important.
I'm just wondering if we can have a firm commitment to, there will be a stand at the Farnham Town Council light switch on, there will be a stand at the Christmas market, because if we can commit to those two things, that's two really big kind of face-to-face engagements. And yes, absolutely, Farnham Town Council, you know, they're based here, they have an office here, people will come in here, but also communicating to councillors is really, really important. You know, because ultimately, at the end of the day, people only contact councillors when something's going wrong. And if we can't communicate what's happening, then we're going to get ourselves in a pickle. So if we can commit to those two things, I would be really grateful.
Councillors are one of my key audiences, as well as doing a public update. I was proposing to do a monthly councillor update in between, so you've always got that latest information. I will happily talk to Ian and talk to the project team and see what we can get in place for the Christmas light switch on, and see what we can do. And I will let you know.
So just remember that also when you've got a council hold emails for a considerable volume of residents for council tax collection and so on. So, you know, that some targeted comms perhaps through where you've got a council as well would be helpful.
We are in touch with the economic team there, so we can do that.
I absolutely understand that this project team is involved, but I know I speak for every single councillor who's in this room, that we're more than happy to support, we're more than happy to do whatever we need to do to help you to do this. It has to be a team, and we're very happy to be part of that team as a whole. So, you know, if it's a resourcing constraint, then you know, rely on the councillors to also help with comms.
Ben, it's not my intention to tell you how to do your job, please don't think it is. What Farnham does have, I'm sure every town has, it has a very vociferous social media type on rants, etc. God save us. But it is a very good way of getting messages out there. Is that going to be part of your plan to, I hesitate to use the word engage with them, but post things on there so that that disseminates through those channels as well?
We can certainly, sometimes we can't always get into some of these channels. They don't necessarily want people like us on there, but we can certainly do what we can among those groups. We're upskilling within the wider comms team at Surrey about how we could be utilising these channels more and getting into those localised groups. So that's certainly something we'll be looking at doing.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's something that the councillors can help you with. Maybe they're already part of it.
Yeah.
You can provide a template at the end of that. I don't know.
Okay, so I think so two things on the one is sharing the phasing plan, and the second is, I think, a more detailed comment. There's more. If you got to get that in circulation, and then with Catherine's point, making sure that we've got some physical presence and the major events in the town. Good stuff.
Just one other thing which you may not have thought of is when the council tax leaflets do go out, we pay where you need to put in a supplement for us, and it may well be possible that we will be a good time scale as well, probably getting into the end of the first phase to do that. So it's worth talking to the council tax team about seeing whether you can possibly do that.
Get the council also pays, but it means problem districts and boroughs concluded. But yeah, I was specific leaflets on that, or at least directing signposts for people to where to go to find state information. Okay, good. I think that's a conversation. So we move on then to the A31 corridor. I think. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Tim, this is a non-communications issue to do with the town centre. I'm sorry I have to bring it up again, but at the last meeting, I brought up the issue of speeding in Castle Street. In fact, which is continuing as an issue and it's causing a great deal of local concern to residents, and to George Hest is the Waverley councillor for the town centre. And we do have regular meetings with Castle Street residents, which Elaine and I set up with Logan and the other members of this committee. But there is a great deal of frustration about this, and in some ways it doesn't help our credibility or the police's credibility that you have these people feeling like Castle Street often late at night in high-powered vehicles. They're not just exceeding the 20-mile-an-hour limit by 10 miles an hour. You even get people always racing up on Castle Street, and people seem to be overtaking each other. Elaine has said quite rightly that we're going to do what we can do in terms of the layout of the road and the tables, etc., to minimise this. There's also the issue which I'd like to pursue with Greg about whether the police can do anything. Maybe they can't. I see you're shaking.
They won't enforce it.
Maybe they won't do anything, but it's causing a great deal of anxiety amongst some people in Castle Street, and then I just want to bring it to the attention of the meeting again and give Elaine the chance to perhaps comment on it.
The whole 21 hours done signed over when the first gets in ahead of the town centre works. The speed tables, which are Lombard and Wall will actually reduce speeds, and any of those low profile source cars anyone father has, they're not going to like it, so they won't be able to. I don't know if my car can get that speed up to go up that hill, but we will be doing some post studies of 20, so we'll be seeing how actually whether it needs to be extended a bit further up the hill, or if there's any additional measures that are needed. So it's obviously a historic town, and this particular stretch we didn't want too much in. I think there was quite a lot of discussion about it at the time.
And I think that is, the county has changed its policy on that. So now, if the average speed is below 28 miles per hour, then there is no road interventions. If it's above 28 miles per hour, then it will be. So I think it's a question of monitoring that. I mean, without sounding flippant, because we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I'm assuming that if there is a reduction in HGV coming down Castle Street, that has made it easier, the ability to speed more. I don't know whether that there is a direct correlation between that sort of stuff. Okay, well, I think Elaine will pick that. Conscious of why that nature.
The job will continue, I'm sure.
I'm sure you know. Okay, good, thank you. Right, so sorry, then, item 5, the A31.
So as mentioned at the June Farm Board, we're actually reviewing the cost effectiveness and benefits of the farm maintenance one corridor scheme. When we submitted the scheme back in November 2021, it was recommended by approval by the Department of Transport. Obviously,
this review that we're looking at will give a kind of direction on the design and key steps needed to proceed to the outcome of the business case. But we are talking to DFT and Active Travel London to make sure that it's a relevant and appropriate scheme. Just a lot of time has passed since we had it approved, and not our fault, just going to say.
We've only had the outcome of this case approved. So.
Strategic, which is
I think we need to see what comes out of the budget and what projects are going to go forward or not. But hopefully this is one, because partly this has an economic impact with congestion. So actually we're trying to grow economies, and this is a sort of scheme that will help.
The project scheme is primarily being driven by the economy and the east-west connectivity, and that's not really something that actually benefits Farnham, because that's the through traffic. The issues in Farnham are much more about north-south connectivity, particularly walking and cycling. And I guess my concern is that as we seek to be more cost-effective, as you termed the phrase, but as part of that, we don't lose the things that were essentially acting as mitigations for the work we're doing in the town centre. So the work around Hickley's Corner is obviously really, really important in terms of north-south connectivity and how we resolve some of those issues. The work around the Coxbridge roundabout is really important, particularly with the Coxbridge development going on and some of the walking and cycling improvements around there. And obviously, you know, from my personal perspective, representing North Farnham, Shepherd and Flock roundabout, and particularly signalising the northern junction of the A325 is really, really important, because that road is going to take more traffic as a result of the town centre works. And if we continue to delay signalising that crossing, I'm really worried about the impacts on North Farnham in particular. So I would just like some reassurance that as you're reviewing it for cost effectiveness, we're not just looking at the economic benefit for the wider area, we are also maintaining the fact that there are some benefits for Farnham itself.
Just for reassurance, we've had like a major workshop with officers and all the different teams, including passenger transport, etc., to make sure that we have holistically looked at this, like you say, Catherine, across all walks of the scheme, not just travel times. It's active travel is very important. That north-south link is really, really important, and it does affect travel times. So, but rest assured that we will be looking at it in great detail.
Recently, Farnham Station celebrated its 175th anniversary, which is a very jolly affair. But there were some people from Network Rail there on the occasion, and I did mention about the works that were going on. There were two interesting things that came out of that conversation. One was that there is spare capacity on the in the car park, which might be potentially used as a mitigator for some of the activity going on, particularly if it's a bus issue. We might be able to use it as an advertised stopping point. But the second was, we know from previous meetings, there's been quite a lot of conversation around with Network Rail about potential development of that site. This point I made before, but both Waverley doing the local plan, we're doing the neighbourhood plan reviews. And if there is the potential for incorporating any improvements through both of those processes, we ought to be getting those into the strategic thinking now, and particularly if it also includes the potential for housing development. And it was just like residents, the people from Network Rail we spoke to had no idea there was any thinking of any changes going on. So it's all about making sure that these conversations are raised at every opportunity. But we would certainly welcome keeping this on the table. That north-south connectivity, as you identified earlier, is very important. And if it's going to be helped by Network Rail lobbying on that behalf as well, then we need to be obviously maintaining that.
Yeah, as you know, it is actually, we're talking with all the rail groups, and they're quite positive about the development site. I know our property team are looking at it as well, and obviously there's also the opportunity of a transport hub
as well. So there's quite a few interfaces, so I totally take on board what you're saying, which is part of our kind of review really of this, you know, what more we can bring to this, which will be more benefits. Thank you.
Isn't the transfer of this for Peter Headley who is very familiar with Farnham and the bridge, and so I just make sure that we follow up with it. Well, yeah, he's just okay, good, thank you. Item 6 program with Sky.
So as you can see, the 20 mile an hour has started. So that started on the 7th of October. The town centre improvement shifted from September to January after speaking to businesses and the impact of businesses during the Christmas period. So we have this and just demonstrated, and we have moved it to the time when it doesn't impact as much, and only one Christmas. That means it goes over. First on-site activities, which you'll see in January, is probably going to be activity works, obviously doing the diversions, etc. Setting up compounds, so that's what we're going to see initially, because that's start works. And with regards to rallies, we will be working with Crest Nicholson to make sure that any traffic management, etc., bridge removal and installation of our major works. So there's, you know, we are working on quite a major programme. There's a lot of stuff happening, as you all know, in Farnham, not just fit, it is development, etc. So there's quite a complex programme going. I think there's a previous slide which shows all kind of the interfaces. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to talk about school streets at all, which obviously interfaces with the other schemes in the area.
So the Working Road road safety improvements have started this week on Working Road. They will run until November. The school street itself is currently being delayed, and will actually only go in once the technology has been selected and the residents have been spoken to, which hasn't yet occurred. So we're doing the road safety improvements and trying to get those done before we do the town centre works, because the concept of having the Woburn Road closed at the same time as roads in the town centre was not something that was obviously sustainable for the town. But it seems to be going okay so far. Time will tell, but that work is on, has been scheduled in around the town centre.
Moving on to the questions, so
Okay.
One other thing, on, can we go back one slide? I don't think it was one. So just looking at the bottom on the North and South Farm studies, obviously, one of the things you did in the summer was to do some additional traffic monitoring. Obviously looking at the year-on-year comparison, we are seeing the increases in traffic on most of the roads in and around Farnham between 23 and 24. I'm just wondering if there's anything that's come out of the work that you've done that's indicating that we need to do anything different now, and whether or not that modelling work is being used by TPD in their responses. Because at the moment, the TPD responses are not taking into account the town centre works. And a number of the developments that are going ahead, you know, Coxbridge being one, Hawthorns, Monton Lane, potentially the cemetery, are all in areas that are also impacted by the same displaced traffic we're going to get from the town centre. Just wondering if there was any update on where you're at with that.
So the cameras which were set up, Catherine, for the North and South Farnham studies are held with our transport monitoring traffic modelling team, and they always feed into transport development planning team updates on traffic flows. So any developer would have to go to that team to get flows and input into their traffic impact assessments.
Issues that a number of these were appealed. So they will have been consulted on once without these developments having been taken into account. They're now at appeal, and at the appeal stage, we're not updating the information to take into account the town centre works now going here. That's my concern. I'll pass it.
Yeah.
A sort of related point, whilst we've got that slide back up about the Wrexham bypass, we understand the reasons why that is pended or in the background. But if the housing numbers in the formula emerge for Waverley as predicted, that's the equivalent of 10 Dunsfolds for those that know the size of Dunsfold. And something like the Wrexham bypass with both Hampshire and Surrey being impacted by housing numbers, it may well be a catalyst that could help release some of those numbers. So I'm just to comment that it's good that it's still there. We understand this 2BC, we're not asking for it to be added at this stage, but it's just to keep it in the back of our minds.
Yeah, and I think it was always expected that that will be a much longer term project. And what we didn't want to do, the Hitch's Corner was sort of the priority project. So I think we thought at the time we did pitch for one, but we get that. But yes, I mean, we need to keep that on up on the radar, and I mean, we'll see what the government's new government's approach to infrastructure is generally. I mean, it's going to be a challenging conversation with the where local councils are being expected to deliver significant increases in housing numbers. The infrastructure needs to be built with it, and who's going to fund that? So anyway, we'll continue to do that on there. If we can get Hitch's Corner over the line, that would be okay. Then on the question, so David, you raised an issue around HGV and 20 enforcement. I'm afraid the police will not enforce 20 I don't know, that's an issue that we raised regularly with the chief constable. They don't have the capacity to do that for one reason or another. So it is self-enforced. That's the intention. In relation, and one of the things that I find so frustrating is that where you have an average speed camera or a speed camera, that you can't use that camera then to capture data around HGV for HGV enforcement purposes. We won't go into that, but that is the position that each camera has to be used separately for whatever it is you're trying to enforce. On the enforcement of HGVs, the NSL, who are the contractors who do on-street parking enforcement and HGV enforcement for us, as you know, there was their vehicle, the first vehicle didn't really work, but since the 16th of September, there has been regular attendance on site, and that is sort of, I think, I hope the word is sort of starting to get out there. But we did know that, as we found across the county, that it would take some considerable while for the sat-nav companies to update their sat-navs and for people to change their behaviour. It has always been the case that we would look to put in a permanent HGV camera. That is still the plan, but at the moment, hopefully we are, I don't know, we are starting to see any impact in reduction of relations. I personal survey this morning that I always do sitting outside. Seemed like there were less this morning, but I think that's my imagination. And then you've asked about the penalty charge notice data, and monthly summary reports will be provided going forward. And so there's no data in relation to the 20 mile per hour. There will be data in relation to HGV.
One of the problems is, of course, that for 6 months, you're only allowed to give warning notice, darling, is that correct? So when, are we still at 6 months there at the moment, just warning notices, or are we, in the mobile vehicle, I presume, I don't know what it's saying, but.
Yeah, we are within that 6 months, so.
Okay, when does it end, never mind, you know?
I'm not sure if it be from July or from September, because the. Okay, you're not July.
Because I feel that we won't see any really good, and we see pension notices being issued, unfortunately, because that's human nature. I take the point, and but I think, and when we say that, you know, I think as much emphasis as possible is placed on placement and on funding of fixed cameras and computer based solving in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, there is an HGV ban, and it is well signposted, and they shouldn't be driving down there. You know, and I know there's been regular contact with the work offenders. But it's disappointing, isn't it? I mean, that we have to then put in other enforcement measures to comply, but that is what we will do.
I've had a number of people say to me around where the cameras are. The ones at the bottom of the Hill Road appear to be slightly hidden behind some new traffic lights that have been installed. And if we could look at that, I would really appreciate it. I know it's supported in the bushes for that ban, but it's not just behind the bushes, it's actually behind, when they replaced the traffic lights, which was over the summer, they seem to have put them in a slightly different place, which now means the sign's slightly obscure. So if that could be looked at, I would really, really appreciate it. The other thing I wanted to raise is the only place that we can put a fixed camera that covers both lanes is obviously at the Follyville traffic lights. If we start to move towards putting a camera in the town centre covering Castle Street, that's great, it will cover the Castle Street ban. I do want to be really clear that if we only cover one and not the other, I think there is a real danger of the fact that we will just displace traffic from one place to another. So if we are looking at cameras, I think, you know, we've discussed it as a farm council group, it really does need to be at Follyhill. And I would appreciate it if our officers could advise, you know, what ways we could look at finding that. And if there are any options as the local member that I can look at, because it is really important, you know, and actually a lot of the HGVs come through at night, you know, and actually that's really, really difficult and quite problematic, and actually because of the narrow pavements on the Upper Road, it remains a serious concern. And I'm desperate to try and find a way to fund it if we can. So if you could give me some advice, I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm aware that in another part of the county, an HGV nighttime ban went in some while ago, and it has had a different impact. So it just takes a while to get that through. Okay, then there were a couple of other questions. The first was from Peter Goodman in relation to signage to stop cars to encourage cars to switch off their engines, level crossings, lane.
There already is one sign in place, which I'm sure you're aware of. But Surrey are looking at it as a different design message, maybe a little bit more bolder to influence drivers to turn off their engines at this location. And others across Surrey, so this isn't the only area which been looked at. There's no set DOT signs, yes, we normally have a bookshelf one, but there isn't. But we will also look at flashing signs as well at level crossing due to the but due to the location of the electrics, you know, with network rail, etc., we can't put them in because it's too dangerous because they can affect the crossing. So there's a little bit of sensitivity about that, as you can imagine. Yes.
Okay, and then the next question was from Councillor George Hess, was to consider leash beacons with raised tables on the south.
This one.
Requirements.
One's the way around. So sorry, so we appreciate the concerns. I have spoken briefly about this, Councillor Hess. We've got two bleachers which are going in at South Street, so they are in line with Rails and Goshy Meadows, so there will be bleachers there. The rest of the town, there's 6 raised tables, 6 new pedestrian crossings which are signalised. So there's 2 at Longbridge, I hope all this adds up, 2 at Longbridge, 3 at the top of Downing Street, and 1 additional diagonal at Royal Dean. These will give dedicated time, so bleachers, pool facilities, they work differently. It has all gone through public consultation, you've already all seen the plans. The road stage, the audit's been done on it, and so it's, yeah, we have the bleachers in, but it's down at South Street. Do you want to speak about Councillor House?
That's my last question, which is from Councillor Powell, and it's East Street flooding.
So myself and Councillor Powell went out and looked at the Crest development, because obviously that's Surrey's part of the scheme, and we looked at the issues, slightly snagging. They haven't finished 100% at that point, but it is a good idea to have lessons learned. So we have forwarded that onto our designers and contractor, so they're well aware, and they've gone out and had a look as well. We have looked extensively at levels of drainage with our drainage team as well, and to ensure that there's no ponding, we haven't got issues. Obviously, we're going to look at some of the existing drains as well, because historically we've got, etc. Footways will have slide grading. It's very difficult because sometimes we built up the road so much over the years, obviously we've got barreling on the road, so we've had to look at the road as well. So there is a slide grading down towards the road, and where we can't get in, where obviously there's basements and there's other issues, then we've done additional drainage within that area, which will be, I think it's already been more involved in the drainage myself. I think it's kind of slot drains, isn't it, across those areas where obviously the feeling goes.
Yeah, which is as existing actually, so we've got a location and we've got surface drain on the footway, and so we keep them as they are, understanding them will be extended, or in some cases they're going in the rain gardens.
I guess the primary concern that we have is that obviously the slopes make a big difference, you know, making sure that the water is sloping away from the buildings and not towards the buildings. And if we do have any areas where it is, for whatever reason, has to go towards the building, there is some kind of slot drain to protect the building itself. Obviously, many of these buildings are listed, and we need to be really, really careful. But the other thing that could be raised continuously is at the moment there are a lot of downcomers that come down from the roofs of the buildings, again, because historic buildings, they used to worry about where the water went, and then we started worrying about it not pouring all over people's heads, and we put pipes in. But the pipes tend to just stop literally above the ground and just go straight onto the pavement. And it would be really helpful if we could understand how that's being managed. I mean, obviously we had asked whether or not some or all of the businesses could look at putting vertical rain gardens in, you know, rain planters in to stop the water actually going onto the pavement. And obviously that's been rolled out by themselves. But it would be really helpful to understand the detail of that's going to look like, because it is something that people do raise. You know, are we going to retain the sort of slotted slabs that we have now, that are a feature in the town, or is it going to be something different? It's part of the town right now, is those slotted details, so it's whether they're staying or not.
Yeah, so as just mentioned, we're breaking them and extending them where they're being extended, or they're going in the rain garden. When it's rain garden, there's a few odd cases where actually they're being removed and connected to the main directly just because of the slopes, but in most cases we keep them.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions. Which takes us to any other business. Does anybody have anything they want to raise for David?
It's not a side issue, really. Well, I mean, it's what I did happen to the public transport section. over the reliability of the next service, and I think you've got that in. Since it's changed the operator, and it seems to become less reliable, and in fact, one thing, software, I think, which is a general one, you used to get a text message that said, you're what's for arriving 5 minutes, and that thing's disappeared, and now we don't know whether it's coming or not. Is that an issue that's been pursued?
It's not part of my remit.
No.
I have seen the email, and I have seen it's been passed on appropriately, and they're being talked about behind in
Yeah,
that team.
yeah, this is the first time I did it, we'll pick that up and find out what it is.
Just a couple of quick comments to the Chairman. I thought I'd just mention that there's a second school street that Surrey's going to be funding in Farnham early next year, which is at Pottersgate School. This isn't part of the FIP, but it's an important thing that's going to happen next year. And discussions are already beginning to take place on how we should consult the local residents and the parents of the school. I attended the first meeting recently on that, but just to make people know. The other point I was asked to just bring up by a pre-meeting of councillors to this meeting was that there is of course going to be a Surrey election next year, and whether or not the what's called the period of sensitivity that the government uses for it, which is often known as further with of any effect. I can't personally see it having any effect in this project, because this is an operational project, it's all due to happen, and I can't personally see how it will have any effect, but it just suggests I mention it at the meeting. Simon, just in case you had any comments as a council leader.
So the pre-election period will kick in around the 20th of March. I think that I can't remember the exact date. I know there have been conversations with the returning officers, with the returning officer and the deputy returning officer of the district boroughs. Obviously, that does mean that, as it is a county council election, that we can't take any major decisions or announcements that might influence the electorate. It ties in neatly actually with what I was going to raise in terms of these meetings. So this board was set up largely as a result of the pollution summit that Jeremy Hunt called, and was intended to bring together all of the key stakeholders, the local government level and farm, to get to a point where there was an agreed plan for the improvements within the town centre, and with the odd bump in the road, I think we have got to that point. So we do have now a plan that works, as we discussed, will start in earnest in January next year. I think personally, my view is that we are now moving into the delivery operational phase rather than any strategic phase. I think most of those conversations have now been had and plans have been agreed, accepting the starting point. So two things really. Well, I don't think anything that's of a significant nature, that any decisions of significant nature that need to be taken, we must do before the pre-election period kicks in. But I do think at that next meeting in January, we should just have a think about what is the best way forward now, because do we need the board constituted in this same way, or actually are we moving really more to a point where there's sort of a working group that then can take the matter forward, because in theory it is just about dealing with any issues that arise from the practical implementation. But I think perhaps if people just give that some thought, and really on that time, and I certainly wouldn't want the county elections to get in the way of the momentum behind this program.
I think in January we need to reflect on the whole council. When I look down the projects, I think there's a lot of projects that have come out of this on positive. It's we may kind of gallop through and think, oh, we've got town centre, but all the other ones, which even though they're minor, they're like 20s or wayfinding or HGVs, they have been, you know, it's been really useful. And I think, like you say, Tim, it might be a different haul than the next one.
So,
I think we can obviously as we move into the implementation phase of the town centre, you know, the other things we need to keep sight of are the A31, because that also has a huge impact on the town. So we will need a forum to be able to discuss that. The North and South Farm studies, which have come up again today, as well, what do we do after the works, and obviously the Western bypass that has been raised by the town park. So I think it's important to think about how we manage those things and how we continue to talk about those things. The other thing that I think I'm reflecting on is the third period is starting on 20th of March and starting in earliest sometime in January. I would suggest that between whenever that sometime in January is and the 20th of March, we do need to have a meeting just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And if there are issues that we need to address regarding comms, regarding, you know, various other things, we have to have a forum to have that conversation. So that we, you know, we go into the third period knowing that things are running as smoothly as they can. So I think actually the communications between the 17th of January and the 20th of March are really, really important, and how we set ourselves up. And because, you know, there will be bumps along the road, we will find utilities underground we're not expecting. We will have problems with contractors, and it's bound to rain and probably snow at some point just for the fun of it. So I would also just like to see if we could maybe schedule something in, like when we're a month in, of actually doing works to reflect on what we communicated, what people are feeding back to us as to what they would like us to communicate, and how we move forward in the strongest possible way we can during the implementation.
just, I made up 20th of March. So, there was a conversation with the district partners, and I know simply because there's a cabinet meeting with the county council on the 20th of March, and I was quite keen that the pre-election period started after that. So, but it is the 27th. There we go. So that conversation obviously works. So it's the following week, the 27th. Okay, I'm fine with that. No points. 1 minute to go.
And it was right, I think it's important to understand that as we're close in a way. I think we agree with that, but we do think it's important that some form is set up afterwards with an oversight, not just a marketing board, but an oversight of what's going on. And I think things like 20 miles an hour, not minor, I think it's quite major, but frankly. So we would like to see them, and perhaps the composition of whatever replacement it needs to review as well. But we will possibly someone new.
Yeah. Okay, well that is conversations to be had. So Ian, very quickly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sorry. So I mean, this has been a good forum for some robust conversations at times, and I think it would be. Our council had discussed it previously and was concerned that if it just went into being then a county council committee type oversight, it would lose the benefit of the local input, and that would include now the new bit, which is here is becoming more active. And so maybe for consideration of the next meeting would be how you engage with businesses as part of this implementation phase. And obviously having still the officer meetings is beneficial if they're tripartite with the 3 towns, so that we can piggyback on things and help support it going forward.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, it's not to remove the form. It's just whether this is still the right form going forward. But we absolutely need to make sure there's engagement across so we will meet on the 17th of January. I'm not going to wish you happy Christmas. That's on its way. But thank you very much. I think that's been very helpful. I think to the later point, we should just reflect a little bit at the next meeting about some of the stuff that we've done, and we should communicate that to the residents as well. On that note, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.